Welcome to MLS Round-Up from We Are Soccer. I'm Craig Hearn, and as usual, I'm joined by soccer syndicate scout Brooks Lambier. Today, Brooks and I are going to chat about the U.S. men's team game that happened this past week against Honduras in chilly Minneapolis. We'll also talk about rumors and transfers within MLS, and then we got some fun notes at the end. All right, Brooks, let's jump in. But first, how are you, man? How you been doing?
I'm good. Like you said, it was chilly when you were in Minnesota. It was a bit cold and snowy the last couple of days. So it's been quite the weather in the Midwest.
It really has. I missed all the snow. I missed all the sludge and all the crap that came through here in Michigan. But yeah, I headed over to Minneapolis there, Minnesota, to watch the U.S. men's game against Honduras on Wednesday night. And I believe it's now being called the coldest game in U.S. men's national team history. The official temperature was 0 degrees with a real feel of like -9. It was cold. I cannot believe they let that game go ahead. There were players who had hypothermia.
Yes.
It was bizarre. It was absolutely bizarre that they let it go. But it was a great atmosphere and a very good 3 points for the U.S. men's team, right?
Yes.
What players for you stood out in that game?
Yeah. So in that Honduras game, I mean, for me, I think a guy that's been standing out anytime he gets a chance to start is Walker Zimmerman and his partner Miles Robinson. They're very solid, consistent center backs that work well together in tandem. They both cover ground. They both can win balls in the air. They're both threats on set pieces, on corners and free kicks. And as you see, Walker gets a kind of a loose ball in the goal, and he turns around and knocks it in. It's not the Walker Zimmerman-esque header that he usually scores, but he can get in there and scrap and find the goal. And we've seen Miles Robinson come up big in the Gold Cup against Mexico. Off Kellen Acosta's free kick ball that was whipped in, and he scores the game-winning goal. So, those guys. I thought Pepe was interesting at times. I don't think he got the service he needed. But one guy that really stood out for me actually was Tim Weah. I thought Tim Weah had a very good game. And the last one people have said is like Luca de la Torre as well. I thought he started off slow. He got better as the game progressed. And then one guy I'll mention that I've kind of I don't want to say pissed on or whatever, but I've kind of just gave him a little shit was kind of Weston McKennie. I think he's really, ever since he got sent home from Nashville and and he couldn't play, he's kind of turned around a bit, and you can really see there were moments in that Honduras game where you could really see the Juventus training and the guys he's been around, that he's really upped his level. He just has to stay with that mentality and not let his ego get the best of him. And that's the tough thing with Weston McKennie. I think ego is a big thing with him. If he can stay humble and be like a Pulisic and just kind of just roll along with it, I think he could be very interesting in these last 3 games for qualifying to see how McKennie plays and what he does.
I agree. I want to unpack everything you just said there, and I'll go in reverse order. I agree 100% with you on Weston McKennie. I think since he got sent home from that camp in Nashville, there he went back to Juventus. He put his head down, and he has played excellent for Juventus. He has been someone you cannot replace on the field. He is scoring goals, popping up in the right position every time. He's doing really well. It was a concern for a lot of us that said, great, he's doing well there. Can he bring it and do that here? I think he has done that here. I think he did very well here. The Canada game was a little different, obviously, smaller pitch. The tactics didn't suit. But in the Honduras game, I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch as well. I also thought Luca de Torre was an excellent player. And I agree 100% with you that it took him a little bit to get into the game. But once he did, man, you can see that he knows what he's doing. And he took that opportunity that Greg Berhalter gave to him, and he ran with it. He's going to be a tough guy to replace or take off that field now after that performance. Yeah. And one of my players for the match, he played in the El Salvador match, and then he played in this Honduras match. He did not play in the Canada match, was Walker Zimmerman. I absolutely love him at the back, running the back line there. I think him and Miles Robinson have a partnership that is just, I can't see any, I don't see anybody stepping in and replacing those two. And Walker Zimmerman is really the captain and the leader that we need. Another player you didn't mention who I thought had a really good game, especially on service, free kick service, Kellen Acosta. that was a big difference in this game, right? We haven't had service into the box like that in I don't know how long. So big props to Kellen Acosta running the middle of the field, and then the service he was able to provide. Just so, I mean, I don't even know how to pick a man of the match. I mean, I've got four. You know, I don't even know how to do it. They're all excellent to me. But with all that being said, it was freezing cold, and the Honduras players wanted nothing to do with that game. So,
Exactly.
you know, make of it what you will.
Yeah. It'd be interesting with Kellen, because if he can play like that, like he did in that match, and he should have been one of the guys I mentioned. And I mean, just connecting the game and finding the game, and he gets bumped a bit, but he doesn't react, when he gets fouled early, with the set pieces and the deliveries, and he was everywhere. He was just as important as Weston McKennie was in the midfield. Kellen Acosta was, and if he can play like that, and he has to make Greg Berhalter think about who he wants to start in the midfield between Yunus Musa, Adams, and McKennie, and then you throw in some other guys there, maybe like an Aronson, who can also play in the wing, can play in the center of the park, Busio and some of the other younger guys they have coming up, and that have played a little bit in the qualifiers and friendlies. It's a good problem to have for Greg Berhalter to really think about who if it's that close. So that's what we want. We want guys that it's good competition training. It's they're tough decisions, but they're decisions that if you get the right players in the mix, that they're going to push each other, and cross our fingers that hopefully we qualify right in these last three matches. And then when it comes to preparing for the World Cup, they can all push each other, and then that leads to hopefully getting out of the group stage and moving on, to maybe further than they ever have before. So it's an interesting team. It's young, but they have some interesting caliber of players, maybe not superstars per se. They all very well together.
Absolutely. I think this is probably the best team we've ever had, the youngest team we've ever had. And man, the future is man, it's bright. It is bright, and it is so fun to think about what they can do. They just got to qualify first. There's a 98% chance, 98.03% chance that they will qualify for Qatar 2022. But until it's 100%, I'm not happy.
Exactly.
All right. So a nice 3-0 win there for U.S. men's national team in Minnesota over Honduras. Very nice. But let's focus on MLS. We had some moves that have happened in the last couple of days, the last week. Which one stuck out to you, my friends?
Yeah, I think, Jozy Altidore heading back to kind of play for Bruce Arena. Back kind of reminded back in the, men's national team days. And I think he might have played for him a bit when Bruce was coaching NYRB, if I'm not mistaken, because that's where Jozy started. So I don't know if Bruce was the coach then, or if it was just before Bruce, but adding a little something different, maybe a guy to come off the bench or to play, maybe Bruce is thinking 3-5-2, and we play Jozy and Busca up next to each other. And I mean, geez, you have Gustavo Bo and Hill. How are you going to play all these guys? That's my question. Is they keep adding people like Leggett and everything. How are we going to get a team on the field? Someone's going to have to give and give up time. And I mean, and listen, this is great for CONCACAF Champions League, because the more depth you have, when you go against the Cruz Azules, the Club Americas, the Santos Laguna, and Leons. I mean, geez, like that, you need that. You need this depth to win CONCACAF Champions League. And if they're going for it in CONCACAF Champions League to win it all, like, let's go, baby. Yeah, like, I need someone to win the CONCACAF Champions League from MLS.
Man, it would be great to see a CONCACAF championship come back to MLS. It would absolutely would. That was going to be my question to you, though, about Altidore going to New England. Where does he fit in? Is he going to have to accept a role as coming off the bench, or playing every third or fourth game, or is he slot right in as a starter? It's going to be interesting. I mean, he's not exactly a spry 23-year-old anymore. It's going to be interesting to see where he plays and if he accepts his role. This is going to be really tough for Bruce Arena, because he's going to have to do his best Pep Guardiola impression with all these superstars he has, and keeping them happy, right?
Yeah, and this is kind of funny. It's like a reverse role. So Jozy leaving Toronto, there's been talks of, well, Bob Bradley, your son Michael's on the older side. Is he going to start all the time? Is he going to have to come off the bench? I mean, now Jozy's got this issue at New England where, I mean, how can you replace Boost? I mean, the guy's going and playing for his national team, which I believe it's Poland. I believe he's starting for. He's getting minutes for, and Jozy's not in the men's national team anymore. So, I mean, he's got to take a back seat somewhere. But if Bruce is clever enough and he puts the right pieces together, and he can put some dangerous teams on the field for playoffs, for CONCACAF, for league play. I imagine Open Cup later, they won't play in a lot of the earlier rounds, to play the younger guys, but it's good to have depth because it gives your players rest, and it's going to be a long season. It's going to be condensed, there's not necessarily condensed, but you start in February, guys have World Cup stuff, the season ends in November. So there's going to be a lot of soccer to be played. So that's one move. I think another move that was interesting, it's been talks, it hasn't been finalized yet, is Shaqiri to Chicago Fire. Yep. I think if that one goes through, that gives Chicago Fire interesting in the attack with adding Shibilko from Philadelphia for trading him for some GAM that Chicago sent to Philly. And I think it adds something a little bit. You have Shaqiri that can play as a wing. He can tuck in and come inside. If he didn't play a lot for Liverpool, but if you've seen him with the Switzerland national team, it's very much he has a free roaming role. And I imagine you give him that role if you're Chicago Fire, because with Shibilko, who's a free roamer as well, that can come and check in the midfield, can run off the back shoulder, isn't afraid not to stay central, to move out wide and to create space for other players. The question is for Chicago is, do they have the players that can connect and combine and get Shaqiri and Shibilko the ball? That's the question for them. They need some other players within that central of the park to help combine and connect and get stuff in the final third for the Fire.
Right. And the last couple of years, Chicago Fire have not been good. They have needed help. They have not had a very good team. So all of a sudden they're bringing in players now. And Shaqiri is, you're right, he's crafty. We all know he's pretty small, but he's quick. He's 30 years old, so he's still young. Yep. He's been capped by Switzerland 100 times. He's still got it in the bank. I think he could be a really good player in the MLS for the next 3 or 4 years. Yep. If he can find a rhythm to get into. He can be a little bit of a moody player if he's not finding the service, if he's not finding happiness on the field. He puts his head down and you don't even know he's there. But if he's getting service and he's happy playing, he could be the best player on the field for them for the next 3 or 4 years. It is a great signing. I think this is the best place for him to resurrect his career. I do want to say, like you said at the beginning, it is not 100% official yet as we film this, but Fabrizio Romano is saying that the clubs Lyon and Chicago Fire are in discussions, and it's all but done. So it looks like it's going to happen. So great pickup for the MLS, great pickup for the Chicago Fire. Absolutely 100% agree. All right. Any other moves or anything else you want to chat about before we sign off?
I think one little quiet move, and this is kind of a down the line development move, is the Houston Dynamo signing Brooklyn Reigns. He played for the Barca Academy in Casa Grande, Arizona, which has produced a lot of players. Your Caden Clarks of the world. Caden started with Minnesota Thunder, then he moved over when they left the USDA. He wanted to go to the Barca Academy, the Residency Academy in Casa Grande, and Julian Araujo and their Matthew Hoppe. They've produced a lot of players that come through there that have left and gone on different paths over to Europe, to MLS, other MLS teams. And it's a very good residency academy. And Brooklyn Reigns left early last year when he was an 18 to go play for El Paso, and signing at 19 with Houston. I mean, let's see if he'll probably imagine he would play with the 23s at least to start. And then, maybe get some, obviously practice time with the first team, but that'll be an interesting one to watch. A lot more kids, as we know, foregoing college, and the higher level kids and signing contracts and some not always homegrown contracts, but finding MLS teams to sign with if you're not a part of an MLS academy. So that's a good move just to keep your eye on, just for everyone to know, like the young guys coming up through MLS. It's important. Pay attention to the young players, because who knows, they could be the next one that if he develops, Houston sell him on to Europe or something. So that'd be interesting.
I love the fact that you keep tabs on these young players as they come up, where they've come from. It shows the progression. It's awesome to see. And you're right. These kids are coming out of these academies here. They're playing the MLS, and then they're heading off to Europe for big money. It's a great thing to see. It's been I think this year has been the best example that MLS and youth academies here, the academies all the way through MLS to Europe. It's a pipeline, and the world is taking notice.
Yes.
And you know, let's go a step further. The world's taking notice. U.S. men's national team has several players, young players, who are playing over in Europe. The World Cup in 2026 is right here in North America. That could be the World Cup that America really makes a splash. And I don't want to say they got a chance of winning it, but they got a chance to be a dark horse in that if they continue this progression with young players and just the progression of the U.S. men's national team. So it's fun to watch. It's a great time to be a U.S. men's national team and a fan of the MLS as well, which the MLS kicks off in, was it about 2 weeks or so? I mean, it's upon us right now. It's coming up. So lots to look forward to.
26th and 27th
Is that what it
when
is?
MLS matches start. Yeah, but CONCACAF starts like the
Mhm.
middle of February. So you have New England, Montreal, Colorado. I can't remember all the teams that have qualified, but you got a lot of teams kicking off and playing. So MICFC, obviously, because they won MLS Cup. So
Yep.
these teams are into training. They're getting ready for games. And, you know, it's this, like you said, the season is upon us. And for some, it's going to be longer than others. And in certain ways, it'll be very condensed, you know, a lot of matches between people going to their national team and then, you know, and their club seasons. And for some, it'll just be club. So yes, it is upon us. Then USL kicks off for us in March. You know,
Yep.
with ECFC joining USL Championship, and you know, it's the USL season's around the corner, and then before we know it, USL 2 kicks off, and you know, college spring season, and college starts in the fall. So things going on.
Brooks, we don't seem to have an off season, man. It is just soccer, soccer, soccer. It is just go, go, go. As soon as one
Correct.
season ends, it looks like another one starts, and there's no off season, man. You look like me. You're all in. Let's go soccer, right?
All in.
It's crazy. All right, my friend. Thank you again for your insight. Thank you for everything. We appreciate it. And looks like we'll have to do it again next week. Maybe we'll focus on some of that CONCACAF Champions League stuff, huh?
Yes, I think that's something we should definitely focus on.
All right, sounds good. You good, or you going to add any more?
I think I'm good. I mean, there weren't too many moves this week, so you know, it's kind of this time when, you know, a lot of teams are, you know, obviously they're getting through training camp and they're figuring out who they're going to keep with the college draft picks, and then where the college draft picks end up if they're USL teams or they play on the reserve teams from MLS side. So, you know, I mean, I guess one other move that's interesting, I'll just quickly, is David Ayala, the young Argentinian U19 that the Portland Timbers just signed as a 6'8" players. So that's another guy they're adding to the midfield, obviously, with Diego Valeri leaving the squad and then being in talks with to resign Sebastian Blanco. That's going to be big for the Timbers, and to add more youth. I think that's the one thing they lack a little bit is some younger players to come off the bench and make impact, where I think you saw a little bit, you know, in the MLS Cup, and you see at times throughout the season is the older players kind of get worn down a bit and injuries happen. And, you know, again, you need depth on your bench to make runs in certain competitions, and a little more depth that the Timbers did with David Ayala. He may not start right away. Maybe he'll play a little for the reserve side, but he's a very interesting U19 Argentine national team player. So that's one to watch as well.
One for us to keep our eyes on, right?
Yep.
All right, buddy. Thanks. Appreciate it as usual. And we'll be back next week with another version of MLS Roundup. Thanks, buddy.
Cheers.